We have a question on our TSL Online Call. It is Wednesday, September 6th, the day after my birthday. This is 40 looking at you. I feel good about this. But here's the thing, is we were asked a question that's a social dynamics question about NEGS and TSS. And this is actually a TSL Online question, although I'm opening this up for different public forums to talk about it. But the reason why we're talking about this is because for ages, for basically since 2009 when TSL Online officially began, we have a different way of working on this different neg-TS social dynamic. Now, a lot of times in the pickup industry, they talk about NEGS and TSS and social dynamics as a social value tool. And this could go on and on and on about the different theories of mate value and what causes attraction, all that sort of stuff, which I massively disagree with. And I'm open for that discussion anytime, people, but it's wrong. It is not true. It may happen in our culture, but it is not how sex works. And that it might be how socializing works, but it's not how sex works. And what we care about is sex and getting sexual here. So in the neg and in the TS dynamic, it is a useful social dynamic, but we're going to teach you how to do it way differently, in a much better way, in a way that you can do right now. This is literally one of the most awesome tools. So let's cover that. Now, this is the TSL Podcast. The TSL Podcast, we have broadcasts on YouTube, on iTunes, on Stitcher. Be a part of them all. You can watch the videos on YouTube. And if you click the free stuff link down below, whether that's on YouTube, iTunes, or Stitcher, you can access all of our free stuff, but also be a part of our free groups, as well as our paid groups where this call is being broadcasted live on, which is live on the Austin Men's Development Board. What's up, Austin Men's Development? And live on our TSL Online Call. So do that. Please be a part of our communities. It's there for a reason. We produce this stuff so that you guys can use it. In any case, let's get into this. So in our forms of communication, when we first start talking to somebody, there's a couple things which are happening. Now, this is super important to get, all right? So a lot of people, they'll talk about this opening or attraction game or whatever, and they talk about all this crap, and it just gets kind of ridiculous. Here's the deal. If you can get somebody to pay attention to you for 10 to 15 seconds, that's kind of a long time, you know, if you count that in your head, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, that is good enough for you to be able to build a bridge of communication. But in that bridge of communication, there's a couple tools which make this work better. So if we really imagine this, that first 10 to 15 seconds where we get their attention, even carrying on to the first 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, so that's a really long time if you're not used to that. And if you're in the flow state of conversation, it's a really short time. But we want to be as effective as possible while that's happening. Now, here's the interesting thing. With what we teach at TSL and what we've always taught since I've been teaching, so way back from 2007, 2006, this was always the case. It's just we designed it a little bit better, starting in 2009, was that we started using ourselves and social dynamics. So all the way back in 2006, it was like, let's be ourselves. Let's be you, and we're also going to apply some social dynamics to it. So this tool of the neg was there. The tool of the neg was there to actually cut down people or to bring a 10 down to your level so that you guys can have a conversation and so on. We're actually not using it in that way, but we're using it for a different phenomenon that the neg created. So something like a neg, the original ones were like, oh, your nose wiggles when you talk, or you have man hands, or man, how do you roll with this girl? All these different things. And what that was used for, and what, you know, the original guy, Mystery, and all the other dudes that hung around him at the time felt that helped lower a 10's value. So a girl who had high social value, was beauty, the beautiful, got everything that she wanted, could be lowered and speak to you. You know, this would somehow leverage your chances better in the arts of seduction. I disagree with that. Now, what did work was it got their attention. So here's the beautiful thing about that little 10 to 15 second window, all the way carrying over to that 3-minute window. My only goal is to connect with them about something that is real about them. That is something that is so true about who they are as a human being, what they care about, that I can talk to them about. So if we talk about topics of rapport or topics of connection, man, they would be things like how you see yourself, how you think other people see you, your wants and your desires, what you think about sex or attraction, or what you're attracted to mentally, emotionally, physically, what you do for a career, what you spend your day with, what your purpose is, what your ambition is, and your actual views on men, women dynamics. These are things that are really active rapport topics for me. But even more so, we could talk about family. We could talk about what they believe in. We could talk about who they are as a person. These are all huge things that can talk and show the real window of them. What I really care about is not so much the topic, and I don't mean that in a, crass or callous way. What I care about is them showing the real them. So these topics, like what they're passionate about, or what they're really interested in, or their family life, or their view on man-women dynamics, this is something that is like a vehicle or a window to get to that real person. So all of my attraction material, or what we're doing in the approach, what Pickup called, is geared to move to that super quickly. And it can happen very, very fast. Now, with TSL Online, you should do the course, check it out. I'll put a link down below if I remember. But you can find out about it. It's a great course. It's amazing. If you really want to master social dynamics and have a great life and have it carry over into like everything that you do, TSL Online is the way to go. But one of the things that we do in TSL Online is we say for that short amount of time in the beginning, that 10 to 15 seconds to get their attention, and then to get enough to build that rapport, that 2 to 3 minutes, we basically need 3 to 4 techniques, right? To really get down. And this would be, one is teasing or negging, very similar. Technically in old school Pickup, there was a difference between teasing and negging, but we'll just call them the same thing. But I like teasing because I'm not trying to bring the woman down. I'm actually trying to build a connection. The other one is bait, and there's multiple forms of bait that we'll probably skip over a little bit here, but it's very easy to talk about teasing and bait together. The other one is small talk and conversation. So we can have conversational threads that we can shotgun out, right? And then the fourth one that I think is super important is the ability to ask questions and qualify. So to ask questions that you care about. One thing about qualification or asking questions is it guides our conversations in the right areas. So we could be talking about anything like the weather and so on, and then just immediately go to like, but you know what? I know we're talking about the weather, but what's one of your favorite things to do? So you could very quickly jump topics and move the conversations where you want to go, which that's a great thing. It's not for control. It's for efficiency. It's for talking about what you want to talk about and finding the women that you like. So let's go over this neg teasing principle, and we'll throw in a little bit of bait there just to make it work. If you can get this down, you can hop and skip over that 2 to 3 minutes and make it more something like a minute or maybe 20 seconds. It just depends on how they respond. So a neg is a form of push-pull. So is bait. And so there's a bunch of stuff that are forms of push-pull. In fact, sex is a form of push-pull. But we push something out so that it gets a reaction. And in that reaction, we then can pull them back in a certain direction. What Pickup failed at massively and still fails at to this day, seeing that the neg or the tease is a form of social value or to bring down somebody's mate value or whatever bullshit there is. And these people really need to revisit like evolution and maybe just have some good sex with people or get into some relationships to realize how flawed this is. But the thing is that we want to push, and we want to push in a way we know it's going to stimulate a reaction, and then we want to pull that reaction back. So some typical negs might be like, man, how do you roll with this girl? Or man, I can't believe you just said that. Or like, oh man, you smile in a really weird way. Or it could be something like, well, wait, you have something, just forget it. So it could be something like that. These are all things which will interrupt a conversation. Another thing is when people stopped wanting to call them negs, they called them breaks in rapport, but whatever. It's the same shit, and the motive behind it was to gain social value or to stop a conversation in a certain area. Where they failed at was the pulling back. So there, I pushed, I get a reaction. If I say like, oh, you have... you'll get a reaction. It'll be like, oh, what do I have? You'll get a reaction, right? So if you say something like, oh my God, I can't talk to you anymore, you'll get a reaction and be like, well, what are you talking about? If you say something along the lines of like, man, how do you roll with this girl? Geez, she might you're going to get a reaction back. If you say, oh my God, you're so ADD, you're going to get a reaction. So they just got a reaction to get their attention. And that was seen as a win. Again, that's a failure. So let's figure out how to pull that in the right direction. Now, there's also videos on this that are really old. They're probably like 4 or 5 years old that I did that really break down this whole thing. But basically, if we start adding in certain traits or values that we want to talk about with a neg, we can make that really work in our favor. So for instance, if I wanted to talk about sex, right? And so I always want to talk about sex with people. You should try it. It's not a bad thing. It's great in so many different ways, but let's use this element and principle of push, pull to get there. So we say something along the lines of like, oh my God, I can't talk to you. Dude, you're such a prude. So then they say, what? No, I'm not. Okay, well, what if I am? Then you can start qualifying on that. You can say, okay, really, you're not. So tell me one thing that makes you not a prude. Let me see your phone. Like, let me, what kind of porn do you look at? What kind of crazy shit is in there? Because it's probably all the PG-13 stuff. So you can then start riffing on these different qualities to get there. Now, all of that isn't to get her just talking about sex or just talking about the type of porn she watches or just what's in her phone that might be kind of racy. What that is actually doing to stimulate and to talk about is to get her to show her real side of her sexuality so that I could ultimately qualify on that. Now, this gets a little bit into something else, and we'll get there here because it would be really good to talk about, but how we can switch rapport to seduction or rapport to intent. So a lot of times you can skip rapport, but the safest ground to teach is to teach rapport first, right? So you can skip rapport with different body language things and so on, but those get really hot and cold, and you'll have much more success if you learn the rapport way first. So another thing you might say is, let's say I want to talk about passions. So I could do actually the same tease and be like, oh my God, I can't talk to you anymore. Geez, you're the least passionate person I know. Let's say you want to talk about judgment, or you want to talk about how open-minded she is. You can say, oh my God, I can't talk to you. You're like the most judgmental person. All right, so what I'm doing there is I'm ending all of my teases or negs with the direction that I want to go in. So if we go down the list, especially that we talk about in the identity PDF, if you're not familiar with that, you can tag me on this to leave a link for it or whatever. But it's really good. It has a therapeutic value, but it also has a very tactical and technical value of how to communicate with people. But let's go down to it. So for self-perception, let's say I like talking to people when I feel happy. All right. So how can I get somebody to make me feel happy? If I know that when they're smiling, having a good time, I can be like, oh man, see, I can't talk to you. You're like one of those people that just brings down the crowd. Like you never smile and you're always unhappy and all your friends just are like zombies. Like, oh my God, no, I'm not. And then you can start qualifying on that sort of behavior. Now, this isn't going to trick them or twist their arm to force them to be something that they're not or incapable of. But what it will do is, if they do have the ability to be happy and uplifting and nice, they're going to more easily show that side to you. So that's very important. The other thing too is let's say, let's look at our social perception, how we think other people think of us. So I could say, man, I get really insecure when people are judgmental around me. So I could say like, man, I can't talk to you. Or let's pick a different tease. We'd say like, man, what is that on your face? Geez. Okay, I can't say that because I bet you're one of those judgmental people that makes the other person feel really uncomfortable. And see, now I want to shut up. I want to shut up because you're too judgmental. And then, no, I'm not. No, I'm totally the most open-minded person. Okay, well, what if I tell you this? And then I could start talking about different things about my life, or I could then qualify and ask them about how they're judgmental or not judgmental and so on. But you can work it in this direction in a very tactical manner. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing. But let's go down further in the identity workbook where we talk about what we're attracted to. Say, oh my God, you're one of those like really attractive women that doesn't value somebody's brain. Or you're one of those really attractive women that like just gets by on your good looks. I can't talk to you. Jeez. All right. So this is another way of starting to move in that direction where I can now start talking about those conversations that I value. In fact, even there, you're giving a compliment, but also giving it and guiding it in a certain direction. So this is actually how we should be using social dynamics. Now, if we're going to stack this, well, I said I'd talk about some bait and teasing go hand in hand. So bait, there's two ways that are probably the easiest to teach, and one is being vague, and the other one is to ask and deny. So being vague might be not finishing my sentences. So I did this already when I was teasing, being like, I can't bring this up. All right, so that is a form of bait because now they're saying what. So bait is something that I put out there and start to pull it back. And when I pull it back, it pulls them back. But when I pull it back, I got to pull them in a direction. So I can say, oh my God, I can't ask you this. But look, are you somebody that is really open-minded? Because I want to tell you a story. So now I've pulled it back in the way of being open-minded, non-judgmental, and so on. So I could also put one back of saying like, oh, but I want to ask you this, but I better not. That's actually asking to deny. And I ask something and then I'm denying the result. And then on the pullback, I could just jump to a question of like, so what's your relationship history? Do you stick around with people for a long time or short time? All right. So I could then jump to a big qualifier very easily. Another way of asking and denying might be something like, wait a minute, where are you from originally? And they say, California. I go, I can't ask you this. It'll be screwed up. And then they say, no, tell me. Now I can ask the question I was going to ask, or I could just jump to a bigger qualifier. So if I am in the first 10 to 15 seconds of a conversation, oh my God, I say, man, you say, oh my God, a lot. Like, where are you from? And they say, I'm from Nebraska. I cannot ask you this. So then they say, like, what? What does that mean? What does it mean? Okay, well, I'm going to ask you a real question. So now I'm going to jump to a deeper qualifier. I'm going to just cut to the chase. I'm going to ask you a real question. But are you somebody that attracts guys who cheat? I want to know this. And again, now I'm moving and carving my way using social dynamics of basically a bait situation, jumping to a qualifier that would get me into what we call rapport cycles, which is a form of communication that gets a little bit more advanced. Take TSL Online. It's good stuff. So that being said, I'm using social dynamics to get there. Okay, it's very important. Now, here's the deal. When we're working in this sort of system to gain more rapport, we want to move towards intent or seduction. This is where guys have problems. So guys might be able to get this. I mean, this is super easy to get. You learn some teases, you learn some bait. You can get yourself into a conversation pretty easily, man. It's pretty nuts. Like, well, how'd you pick those shoes? Jeez, you're somebody that like, you probably attract guys that cheat a lot or something, or did I just say that? I didn't mean to say that. And then they go, what are you talking about? So, well, no, tell me about your relationships. I can jump right there. I can jump there super quick. Like I can get there so fast in a conversation. That is within that 20-second range where I can jump there. Now they may not be ready to open up, but I can definitely set that stage so that in a minute or 2 minutes of the right kind of talking and little bits of stories that I put in, different qualifiers ask, I can get there very easily. So I say like, man, that's an interesting fashion choice. Wow. Did you grow up without a mother? Okay. So actually, let me really ask you this are you closer to your mom or your dad? Because they always say that determines the types of relationships you have. And, like tell me about like what types of relationships have you had? Are you somebody that has good ones or bad ones? And why are they bad? Is it because the guy's screwed up, or is it because you can't find the right guy? Because that's a different perspective too. So these are all just things that I'm bringing up to whittle my way to a certain area. Now, let's talk about this rapport dynamic to intent, because this is important, right? We've now gotten this idea of a neg and a tease, but what's the point of it? What's the point of moving it and slingshotting it into this area? Well, the point is for me to see a real part of them. So a real part of them that then I can truly see it. Once I see that, then I can state intent towards it. So it would go something very similar. And there's a lot of videos that I have on this, but we're just going to brush over it really quick. Is the dynamic goes is I meet somebody, I notice something unique about them, and I tease about it, right? So I meet him, like, oh yeah, nice to meet you. Okay, my name's Steve. I know I can come off a little weird, blah, 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 blah. But okay, I want to ask you something. I probably shouldn't. I'm from California, and it makes me ask really weird questions that affect. I better not ask this to you. Okay, so I baited there, and then she says, no, tell me. I'm like, okay, this is a totally screwed up question. I'm gonna ask you anyway, but when did you lose your virginity? Was it late in the game or early? And she's gonna be like, you can't ask that. I'm like, just to answer it, late in the game or early. There's a point to it. I go, oh my God, now I seriously can't talk to you. You probably, well, whatever. Now it's all good. You're cool. You're my people. You're my people that I have that are like screwed up people. It's all good, man. It's all, it's great. So what made me be able to jump to that wasn't that you just can't ask people, you probably could, but it's probably not effective to just ask people when they lost their virginity. But if I can set it in that pretense with a little bit of bait, a little bit of buffering happening, it's pretty easy to jump there. But now also it has a deeper meaning that I'm not fully letting them know about. I'm going, oh man, okay, well, you're my people, but you're my people that are fucked up people. It's cool, man. That's all right. It's good stuff, right? Now that again isn't to lower their social value or anything. The whole point of this is to get them to open up about their sexuality. If I can get them to open up about their sexuality, if I can get that, then I can qualify on it, then I can state intent towards it, and then we could build like a big connection on it. All right. Now it doesn't have to be their sexuality too. This could be anything. This could be the way they make decisions, right? So I could say like, oh, when did you lose your virginity? It actually has nothing to do with sex. Just answer the question. When, early or late in the game, to early or late compared to your friends. What is it? They say whatever. And then you could jump to basically saying something along the lines of like, no, it has to do with how you make decisions. Now, what I need to do is I need to get their real self of how they make decisions and see that, or their real self of how they can be sexual and see that. This is one of those awesome things. So just a real quick stack of this. I'll do it for both. Why not? For the sexual side, it could be something along the lines of like, no, it has to do with like, like how you make your decisions towards sex. And then like it carries out, like, do you attract guys that like are really tough in the beginning, or like awesome guys that like you get the guys you want, but then after they get intimate, it gets all crazy. Like they become bitches, they become pussies. As soon as their dick comes out, they become pussies, right? Which is a very common thing. That's actually a cold read. Take note of that. And so they go, like, how'd you know that, or whatever, or something along those lines. I say, no, man, it's interesting because like, I don't know, you just remind me of a lot of friends that I have that have that sort of decision. But I think with myself is I always thought it was about who I could get. And really what taught me most about relationships was who I could stay with. So in the times where you stayed in a really good thing, like what was it that made you stay? In fact, here's a better question. What was it about you that they finally noticed? That was like think about the first time you like felt the feeling. It could have been 16. It may not have turned into a relationship, but where you thought it was love, or like you were like, oh my God, that's this thing that people are talking about. Like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, what was it that they noticed? What was that beautiful thing? And if they start to think about that beautiful thing, and I can see that they get there with it, and you should be able to see, then I go, man, you're awesome, dude. You're awesome, man. We have to talk. We have to hang out. I can then state intent towards it. And so we could build these like catapults to rapport very quickly. And intent is key, because intent means I like you, you like me. It's not just that I like you. I can't just say you're hot. You're hot. And somehow that accomplishes something in social dynamics, is that you're hot and they go, wow, I like that you think I'm hot. Okay. So that's got to be there, right? So I just noticed a deep part of them. They may not have been able to tell me about that 16-year-old moment when they found love, or a guy finally noticed something about them and so on, but they need to be able to know that you saw that. And then you could state intent towards that. When you state intent towards a real thing about somebody, then it sticks. Let's say we're going to go with the example of, what was it? Like the choices they make. That's right. So they say something like you said, like, oh, when did you lose your virginity? No, it has nothing to do with sex. Don't even, like, it's not about, it has to do with how you make decisions and how impulsive behavior and what, just answer the question. So they answer the question, I go, ah, man, you're crazy in a good way, in a way that's good. Now it's cool, man. So all that is bait. It's like, oh, you're crazy, but in an awesome way. And you don't even have to do it like me. Everybody has different delivery of it. This is why we have the your role exercise in TSL as well. Whereas you could do it more like, oh man, that's cool. I like it, but just, it's not my style, or it's my style in a certain way. So that's another way of doing the bait of whatever their answer was, that they lost their virginity late in the game or early in the game. So then we could say, but I really want to ask you something, because decisions made with stuff like that, they're not a good representation of decisions you make with like your heart. And so that's the thing, is like, we weigh down in our society and in our mind, like how we've made these impulsive decisions, and somehow that says something about ourselves, when really it's like we're a human being. That's why we're making this impulsive decision. But man, in reality, like we the choices that we make with like our heart, our morality, what we really love about life, like how we're going to be a father or a good mate or so on, they're not based on that impulsive stuff. So let me ask you, when was the last time you made a big decision? Like when was the last time you made a big decision? Could have been last 2-3 days, just a big decision about life. When was the last time you made it? They say whatever it is, or they say, you're asking these tough questions. But you press them kind of for it. And they don't even need to tell you. They just need to say that they've thought. There's okay, yeah, like 2 days ago, but I don't want to bring it up to you. Cool. You don't have to bring it up to me, but like just have it in your head. The part of you that's behind that, the part of you, the real you that inspired that decision, like what was that? That's what I want to know. What was the part of you? Did it have to do with honesty? Did it have to do with what you value? With you as a person? Or was it wasn't a reaction? It wasn't a reaction like how a lot of us lose our virginities. It was something that actually had drive behind it. Let's say they get confused there. They don't want to answer. Like, oh my God, I'm not going to ask you. See, I knew I couldn't ask you this question. You're too afraid to show yourself. So you can't even be yourself in front of a stranger, which is another tease, right? Leading in a direction to pull them back to say, wait a minute, I can be myself, but you're blah, 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 blah. So, well, okay, so you can't be yourself in front of me because you don't know me and I'm putting pressure on you. Ask me something. Ask me something. Like, what do you want to know? I mean, I might be afraid to answer it, but see, why is it that we fear opening up to other people? Yet in our culture, we can see, our anger, our sex, our opinions, everything is a commodity now. Everything is bought and sold to state some fucking point about blah, 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 so that you can be valuable to other people. Whereas you're sitting here in front of me and I'm asking about the value of you. And that's scary. And that's sad. That's fucking crazy. Like, so, man, forget the big decision you made the other day, but what is the value of you? Like, what is it? I'm not being an asshole. I'll tell you the value of me. It's dependent upon the people around me and how much I can connect with them. Is that what it is for you? And then let's say they say yes or no, and they kind of show their real self. See, it's dependent upon them showing their real self or not, which I know can get vague for people, but it's real easy. Once you get it a couple times, you get it. And once you're there, then you say, man, I like you. I want to hang out. So just to backtrack it, negs and teases, they're forms of push-pull. Push-pull pushes, and we pull back in a direction. Man, I can't talk to you. You are the least passionate person. Man, I can't talk to you. You're like shaking hands with a dead fish. Man, I can't talk to you. You're like every politician I know. Or it could be whatever. It's like, man, you have a smile that makes me question you, but it's beautiful. But you don't think you're beautiful. You don't think you're beautiful? Let's talk about that. So now I move it in that direction, right? So that's what push-pull does. All so that I can get a real expression of them. It isn't for cutting them down, making them better or worse or anything like that. It's so that we're on the real. Remember, the more we're one-on-one with a person, the more that we're emoting with a person, the more we're in rapport, the less any superficialities matter. So literally, physically, the closer we get to a person, the less we notice about their overall appearance. And the more we notice a new dynamic of seeing them in details. So there's a whole bunch of good stuff like that. Look, guys, check it out. The TSL Podcast is about learning about sex, socializing, relationships, how to have a good life through sex, because it's one of the greatest things. I was just talking to a guy and he was having a bunch of problems with women right now. And I said, see, that's one of the beautiful things. Pussy, women, sex, love is one of the greatest teachers, because it will show you exactly where your pain is, where your confusion is, and what you need to work out of. Whereas nothing else in the world will get you there, because it didn't get you there. And right now, you have a little bit of confusion in your relationships, and it's making you look at the things that you thought you could ignore for the rest of your life. That's what we do here. That's what we do on these calls. That's the awesomeness. Be a part of it. Join, subscribe to our YouTube channel, click the free stuff link and get involved with what we're doing. Don't just be a person on the sidelines. It's so much better to be a part of our communities and ask cool questions and get in the brotherhood of what that's the best thing. In any case, you're probably thinking, what is all the stuff Steve's talking about? You don't know. Click the subscribe, click the free stuff link, get involved. Later.